Mic check, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Not good. He might have to do it when he's pointing.
We can try it. It needs to be pointed directly at him. Is there not a mic stand on this? I thought there was.
We can hold it.
Yeah, we can hold it.
I'd rather just do that so I know it works.
Okay. All right, you guys ready? All right. Here we go. All right, good morning everybody and welcome to the East Troublesome and what's this other fire? Williams Fork Fire morning briefing. I'm Stan Hinatsu, Fire Information Officer. This morning we'll have our Incident Commander Noah Livingston provide a fire update, followed by the Grand County Sheriff Brett Shortland, who will provide some information on evacuation statuses and reentry process. Before I do that, just give you a quick status update on the fire. The East Troublesome Fire grand zone remains at 192,000 acres, 192,560 acres at 20% contained, and Williams Fork at 14,749 acres at 35% contained. All right, Noel, I'll hand it off to you for an update.
Thank you, Stan. Good morning, folks. Thanks for joining us this morning. As we've talked the last few days, obviously the snow that came in on Sunday was a blessing, and we've really been trying to take advantage of that and also adjust our operations to appropriately take care of our folks and continue to fight the fire and move forward with the containment actions and protection of the structures and values at risk that are still there and that still have some threat to them. So right now, in terms of our operations, because of the extremely low temperatures, slick roads, and access challenges, we're focusing on getting folks out and making sure we have eyes on everything. So we have leadership essentially populating the fire, engines and I'll call it operational resources staged and prepped to respond to areas that we identify that are a problem. So that's the mode we're in versus late last week we had everybody out on the line working. We don't need to do that right now because the snow has been very effective at slowing things down, preventing any fire spread, and really limiting any challenging areas from a fire perspective. So biggest threat right now that the firefighter faces is cold weather and slick roads and access, getting things stuck, and not being able to see in the snow the hazards that exist. So, but with that in mind, let me run around the fire and let you know what the condition is. It's tough to see from back there, I know, but we're showing a solid black line across much of the southern flank of the fire. That's indicating containment. And what we mean by containment is a fire edge where we see very low potential for further fire spread beyond that edge. Now, within that containment, There's still a lot of mop up to do, a lot of work to do to make sure the fire is out and doesn't threaten particularly the things that exist within that fire edge. And in this situation, particularly from Grand Lake down to above Granby, that's the homes that the fire has moved past during that initial push. So that's our focus currently. When Stan mentioned that we have 20% containment, that's really from here to here that we're focused on. And we're feeling very good about that. We have a couple of spots we're still working on ensuring we have containment. We're shooting to ensure we have that up to from Grand Lake clear back over to this western flank of the fire. On focusing on the area from Grand Lake to Granby, I was up there yesterday, took a look at what the effects this snow had, and it really is encouraging. I was really happy to see that. So that's just going to facilitate, you know, the speed at which we can get people back in their homes. So appreciate that. The portion of the fire that's up in the park and on the other side above Estes Park is essentially uncontained at this point. It's burned up onto these steep slopes in primarily bug-killed lodgepole pine in those timber stands. At this point, we're not focused on containment of this portion of the grand zone of the fire. On the other side, we're working with the team from that's working above Estes Park from Cameron Peak. They're focused on maintaining containment over here to keep this fire from coming back down into the community. So the next piece of suppression operation, if you will, in the park is really going to be focused here, and then probably on these flanks to make sure that this piece of ground does not become a problem for us. Across the northern portion of the fire, we're up in the higher elevations in the general forest. That is currently not moving as well. The snow has stopped any active fire spread. Very little, if any, smoke showing up there. We're going to keep our eye on that and make sure that that doesn't spread in an area of concern. But right now, we're not thinking about direct containment line across this northern portion of the fire. That's a lot of ground up in some mountainous terrain and heavy timber, and the fire is not trying to move at this point. We have taken some actions. You can see a spot here around some private land to ensure that that's protected from any growth. And then back around to the western side of the fire, you can, we're watching this very carefully, making sure we don't need to do anything there. If we do, we will, and then making sure this stays contained up above Hot Sulphur Springs. So been a good quiet couple of days. We've appreciated that. We're making our plans moving forward to ensure this fire stays where it's at. That's really the key, and that we don't have any further damage in amongst the structures on the southern and eastern flank of the fire. On Williams Fork, I just say it's quiet. The snow really put a damper on the most active piece of fire, which was just this corner as it was, and so that's essentially stopped. We don't anticipate taking any further action. That's on a north slope, and I don't think the snow will melt in there, knock on wood. I guess the other thing I would just mention is what's the effect of this snow longer term on these fires. And so we're doing a fair amount of modeling with our fire behavior folks, looking to see what kind of effect that moisture, that's frozen moisture right now, is going to have on those dead fuels, and making sure that's going to be effective. To be frank, the fuels were extremely dry. I know we've been through a number of snowstorms up to this point already, and so one of the concerns is that this is not a season-ending event necessarily, but it's certainly a season-slowing event. And really the trick then at this point is to figure out how many days would it take of warmer and drier weather before fire could start spreading actively. How many days would it take before fire spread could actually be a problem? And what's the next weather event out there in the future? How far out is it? And figuring out how that matches up, that will drive our organization, that will drive our suppression efforts going forward to make sure this fire doesn't get up and move on us, given that we're not going to have a line all the way around it. There's just too much fire and it's too late in the season. So that's our plan going forward. It's been, back to the snow, it's been a blessing. We're really happy to see it. Kind of on a pause, figuring out our next steps. So thank you. We'll introduce the sheriff.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Brett Schroetland, Grand County Sheriff. So kind of from my point today, I want to just talk about three different things. I want to talk a little bit about fire progression, community, and then plans moving forward. That's kind of the 3 points that I'm wishing to touch on today. So I'm going to start with fire progression. I think if we go all the way back to October 14th, way over here on this side of the fire is where our fire started. And our fire obviously started probably less than an acre and continued to grow up from there. At that point, our Bighorn Park subdivision was impacted. We've made it through that. We went into pre-evac, we went into evac, and now we've released those people back into their homes. Great progression there. All of a sudden from October 14th, we get this entire span of control as things starts to affect across Grand County. So now besides Bighorn Park impact, we have Hot Sulphur Springs impact. We have the town of Granby impact. We have the Highway 34 and 125 corridor impacts. And then we all the way move up to Grand Lake. So what I want to emphasize on this is this SMART is a very, very small incident, and it's progressed very large. And as the incidents get larger and larger, they take more and more resources and more planning and time. And then eventually at some point, these incidents start to kind of work their way back down. And so within every incident, we have successes and failures. That's just how these things work. And so as we move forward with this incident, this area has been open. Then we've been able to actually release the Hot Sulphur and Granby areas back into pre-evac and then back into regular status. And we're still really working on this. And so what I really ask the community to understand is that there is a lot of people involved in this process right now. There's a lot of impacted areas, and everyone in our county is impacted in one way or the other. Everybody works in different parts of the county. Everyone lives in different parts of the county. And so I know people are frustrated. People in this section want to get back into their house. But what I ask them to realize is that we made successes over here. Give us the time over this side of the fire to make those successes as well. I ask us as a community to look together as a whole. Everyone, focuses on themselves and looks towards themselves and their missions and goals. But realize that your community needs you as a whole to function. And so I ask us to have this community impact moving forward. The last couple of days we did some of our contractor and plumbing processes, and that worked out very, very, very well. We were able to get into a lot of houses, make a lot of good strides in that direction. As I mentioned, every incident has unintended consequences as well. And so as we got more people into these areas, what happened was a lot of people found out about their homes ahead of the official sources, and that causes some problems as well. But we also know that when you have an incident that spans this much of an area, it is impossible to actually be able to restrict all of those areas. And so we understand that. So we do the very best we can to open and close areas as we see fit. So what I do want to focus on today is that Highway 34 and Highway 125 corridors. And so the west side of Highway 34 is a very impacted area. The 125 corridor right here is a very impacted area as well. Good news, we realized that there was minimal impacts to the east side of Highway 134, including the town of Grand Lake. So we were able to release those yesterday. That got a lot of people back into their homes, thanks to the utility companies, law enforcement, fire officials that worked days and days to get that actually open. And so that area is open on the east side of Highway 134, or east side of 34 now. The west side of 34 still remains closed. And I look at a 3-point process moving forward with that west side of Highway 34. Number one, our goal is to try to review these neighborhoods as we've been doing the last day or so, including today, to get people back into these unimpacted areas. So that would be subdivisions that are on the west side of Highway 34 that fire and law officials have determined are no longer at risk. So these would be areas unimpacted by the fire itself specifically. So that is goal number one. Goal number two is to try to get people into the areas west of Highway 34 that are not specifically in a subdivision. So a lot of these little stringer roads and stuff that float through the forest and up in those areas. And then the number three process is the most difficult. Those are those areas that were truly impacted by the fire. The Columbine Lake area, County Road 48, 49, County Road 41. Those areas have significant impacts. And those are the areas where people want to get into the quickest. But we really need to make sure that we have our adequate utility resources in place, our safety plans in place, and we're ready to actually make that process happen. And so those are the kind of the three processes that we're going to be running through in the next couple days. We made great strides with our damage assessment teams yesterday afternoon. They made it through several of the impacted areas, but they have a lot more to do. And so we'll be continuing on with that today. One of the things that we're really struggling with is identifying homeowners. We live in a second home community. There's a lot of people that live different parts across the country and don't actually live in Grand County full time, so they don't even know the last time they've been at these houses. So what I really need your help with today is letting our community know that there is a form that's going out on our webpage here in just a little bit. It's titled a Property Verification and Notification Form. Please help us get that message out to our constituents that they need to go out and fill out that form online so that we can get their contact information. That contact information is going to help us speed up the process, be able in the COVID world to put together some Zoom-style meetings. Normally we'd be bringing these people into these auditoriums to make these notifications, but the COVID world, once again, has brought new challenges with that. And so please encourage people to fill out this form, get this form back to us right away so that we can actually get on with notification of these people. As these damage assessment teams continue in the field, they're making great strides, and they'll continue to make great strides over the next few days, but hopefully we can get some of these unaffected areas open as well. I think that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll turn it back over to Stan. Yes, ma'am. Great question. So that has definitely slowed that process. Those teams are going through these neighborhoods. Some places have a foot of snow out there. Some places have several inches. And so they're trying to identify what is a house, what is a garage, what is an outdoor structure. And if they can figure out what those are and then truly make sure that their assessment is on the correct land, that's key. I know a lot of people are posting on Facebook and stuff, different pictures, but my obligation to the community is to make sure that I provide them that accurate information. So I need to make sure that the correct house is on the correct parcel, working with our county assessor's office to make sure that's correct. And that slows that process. The snow is not helping us at all out there. We did have one officer injury yesterday where an officer fell, and so you have those things that happen on an incident as well. And so we're trying to really make sure that we get those crews in the field, but we have to do that safely, and that's definitely slowing those damage assessment teams, but they're making progress. It was an ankle injury. So at this point, we'll try to release those later today. We're in the range of about 100 or so at this point. Honestly, I don't know. We're finding more every direction that we turn around. We get down these roads and we look like things are looking up, and then we find a house that is an unfortunate mishap. And so we're just continuing to work through with those. Like I said, that snow is making it really hard. Some of our aerial images, we can't fly it and look at things that we would normally look at. And so that snow is definitely hampering those crews.
All right, any other questions for either the sheriff or for Noel? All right, well, thank you for coming and appreciate your time.